All right, so again, if anybody's on the call wants to ask a question, feel free to ask. This is the best time to do it. And does anybody have any questions before we start? Any areas you want me to focus on? You guys are quiet.
I'm having a lot of trouble with the routing.
Okay.
I want to focus on that.
Yeah, we can do that. I have to build out the application anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a kind of like one of my previous ones. It's going to be a Tesla order form, but this time I have photos. So we're going to get started on that. Let's see here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to check, make sure I don't have React Router DOM. Looks like I've got React and React DOM, and yes, it's version 18, so it's going to be throwing this React DOM render, blah, blah, blah stuff. So I'm not too worried about that. The other thing is I'm going to want to install the old version for now. The 5.20.0 is, I believe, pretty close to the latest that's available from React training in the 5 branch. Version 6, they changed a lot of things, like switch became routes and all kinds of stuff. It's easier to understand instead of calling it switch, but at the same time, they broke functionality with version 5, and version 5 is what everybody at my company is currently using. There's one company that's trying to switch over to version 6 because they just started an application about midway through last year, and it's still only about 200 pages, 200 routes. So yeah, they're basically breaking it and spending a month recoding it. So yeah, that's always fun. That's why if you ever do develop a library, just remember that sometimes it's not just, demos and things like that are affected. So maybe keep some backwards compatibility in there. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install React Router DOM. Now, if you notice, if I just hit enter right here, you're going to notice that it did version 6.3.0, right? Version 6 has that weird syntax. So if I accidentally did that, the easiest way for me to do is just npm uninstall React Router DOM, and it should get rid of it. So if I want to do npm install React Router DOM, and I want to specify a version, I can do 5.20.0, I think.
Is that an @ symbol, Brian?
Yeah, let me see if we can make that a little bigger. Maybe that'll make it easier to see.
Thanks.
Yeah, so we're going to do React Router DOM at 5.2.0. And so we're basically telling it that we want 5.2.0. And if we go back over here, and you'll see, oh, sorry, I didn't like 0.0. We're going to just do 5.20. Oh, come on. Where? I'm going to have to put this up. Give me one moment. So we're going to do npm React Router DOM. Looks like they have a 5.3 as well. I'm going to go to history here. No. Yeah, 75 versions up here. So version history, and you just kind of scroll down here. looks like they've got this 5.3.0. So I guess I'm going to do 5.3.0. And that looks like that's the latest. So, okay. So now if I go back over here to this, we'll notice that we're on the version 5 branch. And if you ever see this little caret here, that means that it's going to install the latest version in the version 5 release. So it's never going to go above a version 5. So that's where it's at. Let's see. So we don't need this open anymore. Any questions so far on installing and verifying that it's installed in package.json in the dependencies section? Speak now or forever hold your peace. We're good? Any questions, Adam?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, so I am gonna do one thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to have a provider for your routes. So in order to do that, what we need to do is we need to import, I did it again, our browser router as router, form from, and we'll do React router DOM. Oh, come on now. So what this is doing is this is importing the browser router method or component or whatever as something called router. So we can use this like this. So when we wrap the app as a child in here, what this is doing is it is making the browser router provider available to the app. So it's kind of like installing React Router DOM on the app. So you'll see the similar things when if you ever have to use like Material UI, for an example, we'll use a provider, or next unit, you'll see Context API. Context API also uses provider format like this, where you just wrap wherever you need to use the router. And we prefer to have the router wrapped around the app because, well, the entire app is going to be using the router, so might as well. But there are maybe some minor areas where you might have a different router inside of a router, but that's way outside of the scope of this, and nobody really uses it. Most of the time you just use a single route for that. Any questions on router? Let's make sure I haven't broken anything first. Okay, haven't broken anything, so still have that wonderful React DOM render. It's no longer supported. So now let's go into our app component. And we probably won't need the index component anymore. I'm just going to leave that out for right now. And so I'm going to make a few things happen. So I'm going to show you without linking first, and we're going to link to show you how the links happen. So if I do, yeah. So let's say that we've got, let's say that we've got a couple of routes that we want to be able to go to. So like our root route. So in other words, our home page, our order form itself, and then say my order, right? So let's say you have you have an order that you just placed. So probably what we're going to need to do is use a switch, and we're going to need to use a route. So the switch wraps our routes. What we'll probably do is right here in main is we will go ahead and do a switch, and then I guess we're going to need 3 routes, right? So maybe we need to do I guess we probably could just do just a non-closing route. And on this first one, we just wanted to go to the home page. And so we're just gonna render, say, something like home, right? Or say, you know, I've got this in a JSX thing, so I'll do an H2 home. And we're going to copy this. And we'll say order for an example for right now. So this will just kind of give us a very basic 2 route thing, and then a third route might be my order, right? And we'll just say my order. Mordor. All right. As we'll make it look more professional if this is the official sort of Tesla website. So now we've got, if we are at localhost 3000 with this slash on here, so this path is just a slash, we're at home. If we go to /order, we're now at /order. You can see that it gives us our order. And if I do my order, it'll be my order. Like that. So these are very basic routing with no parameters or anything else. Was anybody stuck on this and has questions, wants me to go into more details on this? Come off mute if you do. You guys are very quiet.
Yeah, I have one question.
Sure.
What's the point of the switch again?
So the switch in this is to effectively organize your routes. It's more like, you know, like let's say we get rid of it for an example. It starts doing weird things, especially with nested routes. I can't remember exactly. Version 5 started doing some other things to this that that started making things work weird with like nested paths and things like that. But basically, you probably should leave it in there, even though they've been trying to get rid of it for, I don't know, about a year now. Maybe in 5.3 it doesn't have as many bugs as it did before. So they've been trying to get rid of switch completely, and then they went ahead, like in version 6, it's not even called switch anymore, it's called routes, and you're supposed to wrap any of your routes inside of that routes.
Okay. All right.
yeah.
I'll just, yeah, got it.
I'm just going to say that that's the way they want you to do it, and without getting into too much detail, because it's probably not all that important. But in version 5, I know that they still recommended using switch for some reason.
Once we use it here, is this the only place we'll see it, Brian?
Yeah, typically this is the only place that you want a route. Paths is going to be wherever you start your system, unless you've got some sort of a multi front end environment or something like that, where your header is linked in with something else, or things like that. But it gets really, really complex once when you start to have a route somewhere else deeper. Like say that you had like a sub module for something else that had like extra paths. So that starts to get way, way, way over what we're teaching, and there's very few places that use that. Okay, so I think that I want to make this a little bit more complex. And so I'm more interested in saying which model I want. And what I might do is use a use params and get our model number. So what we might do here is say destructure model, since this is the name right here. So anything that you see on this end that has a colon model is going to be an object that's being destructured, returning from use params. So use params is run. It returns an object with key value pair of model and whatever else is up here on the line here. So what we probably want to do is display this here. So we're going to say order model. So this variable that we just defined here is going to be displayed inside of this H2. So if I just save this, so save this, notice that we don't really have a route for order anymore. So, but we do have where we could say a 3. Of course, that's not working the way I want. That's how it works. It's defined, so I'm going to go ahead and break this out into a component. We should have already done that anyway, so not sure if it really likes doing we'll say, oops, sorry. And I like using JSX because it gives me linting for JSX and a few other little things. So new component, we're going to import React from React. And that's less important now than it used to be. Let's do a new variable called order form. We're going to set that to a function. We're going to return a little bit of JSX. And I guess we're going to put this in here. I'm just refactoring this as its own component. And then we still need to export. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do we're going to import our order form from component order form. And we're going to render it only when we're on order model and see if I broke something. Yeah, I broke it. So model is not defined. Why not? I've already broken it. All right, give me 1 second here. Let's make sure we haven't messed up the page too much. Yeah, line 9, 15. Oh, return to console log model right there. All right, so let's try this again. So we're going to give it order 3. Now we've got order model 3. Or if we wanted a model S, we are passing in, I guess we probably should pass in a capital S. Model S, X, or a Y, right? So if you notice, every single time that we click up here and we put this in and we hit enter, it reloads everything. So we don't want that to happen. We want it to reduce the number of API calls to our web server and amount of data that's downloaded. We don't want them to constantly refresh the page every time they switch because it just uses up a lot of bandwidth and makes it so we need bigger, badder servers and things like that. So this is where React Router really shines, is when we start putting in links. So what a link does is it's going to allow us to link to a page like home, or and we'll do our 4 models there. So model S, 3, X, and Y, and then my order. And we're just going to do a single order. So this will be my order down here. This one here is going to be model Y. model X, model 3, and model S. Okay, so now we have a horribly styled menu up here. I may put a little bit of CSS to make that so it's not so horrible. New file, we're just going to call this app.css. And let's take a look at our JSX. We have a header here. Let's just do header display flex and do a justify content space evenly. And then we're going to add this to the top of the file. So no, I didn't do dot slash. All right, so now we have it spaced out and it looks something more professional. Maybe add in something like this logo.png. I already put in a couple of photos in here to make it a little prettier. All right. Oh, that's way too big. There we go. All right. So see, we're already making this look like a completely, totally official Tesla website. Right. So let me do a console log. Rendered just to give you an example. So if I refresh, you can see that we rendered the page. If I go to Model S, Model 3, Model X, Model Y, or my order, this never refreshed. And we can actually do console log model in here. If I go home, we're back at home. If I go Model S, did I break it? Let me refresh. Yeah, I must have done something wrong. Why is that breaking on that? That's just weird. I'm blaming on React 18 on that one. I may have to put that in like some sort of a use effect or something, who knows. Let's unbreak it right quick. Oh.
I think it's because your links link to model instead of order.
Oh, no, that's going to be easier for me to fix here then. So, yeah, good call. All right. So we got home, S, 3, X, Y, and my order. So let me go back and see if I can get console log to work. And we'll just say, model. Oh, this space. All right, so I'm going to refresh. So I can go to home, And it didn't have to re-render app. It just re-rendered what's inside of that switch. So I just wanted to Model S and it went here. I went back home. It didn't have to re-render this page or 3, Y, X, my order. So you can tell that it is capable of rendering these without refreshing the entire page just by clicking on that. So this reduces the amount of communication that you have to do back to the server to get this web page. So it only has to download the React app once, not, if we do, if I change this to a Y, right? It just blew away everything. It not only had to render the page, it had to download it from the server, had to render it, and then go to the Model Y. And if I go to like S, notice how it refreshed this whole section. Does that make a little bit more sense? But yeah, great call out on me having the wrong route. Let's do then we'll need to do and links are styled as an A. I know technically nav links are probably what you want to make these, but I'm just going to see what I can do with a regular link on these. Nav link should be stylable. I think you can pass in a style directly into it instead of styling it straight with CSS. You could also do, a styled component if you style type thing as well. So we've got header, anchor tag. We'll just say change text decoration to none. And then I guess 600. That's close enough. What do you guys think? Totally legitimate Tesla site?
Sign me up.
All right, so let's kind of play with some of the other things that we can do on this. So maybe we've got a section here, right? And actually we'll do, nobody ever uses an aside, so whatever. So let's do an image in here, and we're going to do a source of, oops, sorry, /assets. And then, so like if I go into my assets folder, I have model-3, model-s, model-x, y. Let me rename these where they've got a capital. Could just hit F2 on the next one. What do you guys think? If I can find F2. All right, cool. So I have a X, S, 3, Y. So if we go to model dash and then do $ curly brackets, so we break out of the string and we just put model in there. We'll do an alt tag of put a .png in here, did I? Not to say. There we go. All right, so now we've got a Model S. Model 3 is way too big, an X and a Y. The S and the Y are probably from the same website that I stole it from. And these are probably from the same website. Yeah, so let's fix the CSS on that right quick. So we're just going to go to app CSS, and we're going to do, say, let's give this section a class. Of order form. We'll do dot order form, and we'll do image, I guess. We'll say I think that should make it work. Okay, cool. So now we've got a S, a 3, a Y, an X. Totally works. Okay. So yeah, I think that's it for styling. I don't think I'm going to push this too far. Otherwise we'll all be up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, it looks a lot more professional than the last one that I did. We're up to what, 21 lines of CSS. All right, so now let's get into the messy one. So I think I want to put let's see, we're probably going to want to do maybe some sort of a back button. That way I can show you how to do like a use history. Who wants to see use history? Because we're going to be using it again anyway, but you guys want to see use history or no?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So we're going to use history, and I'm going to just start my form out, since we're going to need a form anyway, and I want to show you the prevent default, since, well, you should have learned about that. And I'm just going to have a submit button. And I'm going to select the submit button and say, well, I always like to do show me the money. All right, so now we have this this form, and when I click on show me the money, you're going to notice that it refreshes the page and put a little question mark up here. So if I had, say, like, and I'm going to label no HTML4. We're going to do I guess an input. Yeah, so we're just gonna have this text input. Name is gonna be I don't know, name, whatever. So now we've got this text box here, and I say hi here. I do show me the money. If you notice up here on this line, it did a question mark, name equals hi there. Great, that's not what we want. That is the default behavior of a form submit. Just without us doing anything else, a form submit will drop whatever's in this form and stick it up here. So, you know, like let's say you've got a password, right? Spell that correctly. So we're just going to say so you guys can't even tell what my password is here, right? So if I do show me the money, so his name, Brian, password, my password is so weak, right? You don't want that to happen. So that's the default behavior that the browser has been doing since 1993. It's annoying. Nobody likes it, but it's really annoying. So what we can do instead is we can make some sort of a change handler, or maybe not a change handler, but a submit handler. So we're going to do const, and we're going to say submit handler. And this is going to take in one parameter of an event. And so you'll either see E or event or banana. I'm going to use banana because why not? The banana event sounds fantastic. Morning shake. So first thing that we want to do, we're going to do banana dot. I've already forgotten prevent default. So what this is going to do is when we hit the submit button, it's going to run the submit handler. We haven't put it in there yet. And it's going to prevent default on our event that I just happen to name banana because I can. Don't do this in a production environment. You will get fired. Luckily, this is just to make it so you see that it's just a word, whatever you want to call it. Who knows where I should put this? Do you think I should put this on the button or on the form? The submit handler.
On the form.
Excellent. So on submit is a built-in thingamabob. And we're just going to run the submit handler. So now when I go up here, and we're just going to refresh the page. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to go to Model S, and I'm going to say, here's my name. Password is show me the money, no exclamation point. And when I hit this button, it didn't do anything, which is fine. We didn't point it anywhere. We just prevented the default behavior from sticking that stuff up here and refreshing the page with it. There are reasons why it does it. Most of them are PHP and other things. But in this specific case, nobody does it like that. Not since, I don't know, probably about 2005. Because who wants to pass their password over a URL? So now what we're going to do is we're going to do something very similar. So to this use param, we're going to call our use history from our React router DOM. And this is going to return history, which is basically just an array. And it's got some other little neat things that it can do. So if we're going to, I guess, well, what do you call it? I've already lost my mind. If we want to add something to an array, there's lots of ways of doing it. But the one that I'm thinking of is to push. And what do we want to do is we want to push this to, say, I think it was my order. What did we call it? Yeah, to my order right here. So if I click this submit button, it's now going to push to our history this my order path. Let's go ahead and save it. And we'll go ahead and do this. Never. Yo-yo-yoma. And then some random typed characters. Show me the money. And it went to the my order page. Those are the main areas that you're going to see this pattern. And we haven't even gotten into editing the form or anything else. This is just the behavior behind the form. So we wanted to prevent the default and we wanted to push. I'm going to go ahead and change this back to E before I lose my mind. So this is pretty darn close to, what we'd want, kind of a pattern. So we could go home. Maybe home might have, something else underneath here, P, and we'll say you select your vehicle above, save it. Right, so now we're going to select Model Y, right? And if you order and I do show me the money, now what you're going to notice is it went over to my order. Go back over to Model Y. The data is, well, missing, unfortunately, because we haven't persisted it in state. I guess before we start moving into forms, anybody else have any questions about React Router? This is the best time since we're still in a somewhat easy, only 3 routes and fairly easy stuff. Or did I put everybody to sleep yet?
Can you go over like the second route? Like I kind of understand with the model slash
Yeah.
colon model. Just like
So this colon is saying that this is what's known in the industry as a slug. So this model is now a name. So if I wanted to call this something like
I'm shocked you know how to spell that.
Show off.
So I'm going to copy that because I don't know if I can do it twice. So let me just save this for an example. Now notice how it doesn't have this, and it says model undefined, and it doesn't have a photo. It says order model. It's unhappy, right? So if I go over here to the order form, I would have to destructure supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and then also put it everywhere else, like this and that and that, right? Oh, we still have a model. Oh yeah, model Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Okay, now we got everything back. So part of why I went crazy with the characters here is because it's going to give you a demonstration that you can call this whatever you want. This is now a variable name for you
Okay.
to use in your params object.
So it's your variable pretty much. Basically.
Yeah, you just
Okay.
yeah, and this is the exact same thing as if we did const supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and use params is going to return an object, and we can just do use params supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So it's just a short way of breaking that out of use params. So use params, all it is an object. So your params object is going to have that in it. And there's ways of you doing even more params if you want. You know, you could have it where you have like a param 1 and a param 2 and a param 3 and stuff like that. It's not, I don't think that it's worth it to do that. I usually just have a route like this. We'll get into more of those routes, like in unit 4, and some more detailed ones maybe next unit. But for the most part, it's just, you know, whatever you called that slug is what it's called in here.
Got it.
So let me get rid of some of these. Oh, that's CSS. All right, so we should be back and it's still working. So model is just the variable name that I'm using. We're destructuring it here, and then we're just using it everywhere. It's really quite annoying. Including in our image, you know, so model, whatever. I guess I could have done like two lowercase or something, and it would have worked fine as well, but I decided to be lazy. Okay, any other questions on React Router, and we can get into forms? Who wants to know something about forms or has questions? We're going to need to do a checkbox, aren't we?
Yes, please.
That's the evil one, isn't it? Okay, so I don't think I'm going to have another password box. That's played out on this one. So we're going to do, say, yeah, we're just going to do name. I think that we've got enough practice with that. So we're going to do another label. No HTML4Gs. And we're going to call this name. And box. And we'll call this accepted. I don't really need an ID on these. It's fine. So I can't even spell solemnly. That's spell solemnly. Yeah, see, you guys had to jinx me on that. I solemnly swear I'm up to no good Yes, I know I'm switching to a different genre for that one, but yeah, so let's see here. So we've got name, and I solemnly swear I'm up to no good checkbox, right? So we're going to want to store these in the form. So that's where we're going to need to add in a use state. Yep. My keyboard's sticking on that curly bracket. And I don't know, should I just be boring and just, I don't know, use form and set form? What do you think? I guess I'm going to use form. Might as well. Otherwise, I'm going to start messing things up. So we'll do use state. And for right now, this is just going to be an object. We're going to call this initial form values. So if we've got initial form values, we've got 2 in this one, which is name and accepted. So we're going to want our initial form values for name to equal an empty string, and our accepted to equal a Boolean value, because it's going to be a checkbox. So it's either true or false, nothing in between. Why do we need to store anything else? And probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say model, and I guess we can inject that later. It's fine. I'm getting too complicated. We're just going to do the form values. So let's see here. So this, whenever you see this name equals name, the name inside of the quotes needs to match your form value inside of your forms. I forgot to put this inside of here. So our form is going to be set to our initial form values. This also makes it so that we can reset it back to nothing whenever we get a chance, whenever we submit it. So name has to match here, and name has to match here. So name equals accepted and name equals name. And whenever you hear in an object, you'll hear key value pairs. And whenever you have something where it's name equals something, it's always name value pairs. So you'll hear key and name kind of interchanged. And so I kind of hate using, name. Maybe we'll just call this full name. It's probably going to be a little easier for me to remember. Something like that, right? Now we still need to get the value into here. And now we have this set into a slice of state called form. So what we can do is we can do value is equal to form dot full name. So this is going to be set currently to an empty string, because that's the value side of the equation. So you'll hear name value. And so the value of this name is called full name. The value of this is whatever's at form.fullName, which currently is an empty string. Does anybody have questions on that? or no?
Nope.
Okay, so what we're going to do is I don't really need to put the value of this in here. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that I necessarily need to put the value of that in there. We'll mess with it a little later, but we're going to start with the input label first. So if I've got a slice of state and I want to update it every single time somebody changes, we're going to need a function to run to update our state in this set form function. And we're going to want it so that it works on all of the items in here. So like if I added more things like color, or, you know, do I want the toe package or whatever, right? That kind of stuff would be put inside of there. So what we'll probably just call this is just, I don't know, this is sort of what I always call it. We're going to need our event. And so from here, what we're going to do is we're just going to do a set form. So now the data that we're wanting to replace in set form is an object. So currently, if somebody hits a key, it will just delete everything. So we want to spread in our form so that it has the same data that was there. So we have our full name and accepted, but at its prior state before you hit the key. And then we want to modify whichever element we're using. So that would be e.target.name and update it with whatever data we just typed, which is e.target.value. So e.target.value is not just the character that you typed in, but it's also all of the previous characters that you typed in. If you backspace, it'll backspace. If you hit space, it'll hit space. So this will work really well for just the text element and things like that. It won't work very well for the checkboxes. So if we have our input here with our full name, I'm not even worried about this checkbox down there yet. What we can do is we can detect a change. Anytime that there's a change to this field, we're going to run our form change function. So anytime that I hit a key instead of input, it runs form change. So if I hit an A, a letter A, what it's going to do is it's going to run set form. It's going to make a new object. It's going to put everything that was in the form, which in this case is just you know, an empty string, or full name empty string accepted is false. And then it goes into modifying what's already in there. So in this case, e.target.name on this input field, this is e.target.name right here. It means that it's going to put in the string value of full name. And in unit 1, you had to do string values inside of square brackets. Oops, this does not need to be square bracket here. Sorry. To get the actual string value of that name to look like this inside of the form. And then the e.target.value is this value field right here, which is the reason why you do form.fullname. So it can grab from this slice of state here and display it inside of the input field. So let's do a demo and we'll do some questions. So if you notice, every single time that I hit a button, it is having to re-render the model Y page because there was a change event. So instead of re-rendering the entire page, it only re-rendered this route. But it did so without actually calling back to the website and saying, hey, I need something. So any other questions on how to set for a input type text? It's usually where the questions start rolling in, just FYI.
So on your set form, you use the spread operator. Is that completely necessary there? What happens if you forgot that?
So if you forget this, then it's going to only put in e.target.name and e.target.value, and it's going to overwrite these values here. And it's going to throw a little error saying you modified something you shouldn't have. So if I just save that, and I'm just going to refresh so we get nice. Where do I have class name? Give me 1 second here. Sorry, I need to fix this. Yeah, it's class name. All right, I've been doing view as well recently, and that probably threw me. Let me refresh again. So now if I type in the letter A, yeah, it didn't throw an error, but if I look at the keyboard. Refresh. So now if you notice, we got full name accepted false. If I type in the letter A, it deleted the accepted and everything else after it. So if I had, something in here like, Model S, for an example. So you notice we have Model S, full name, accepted, false. And as soon as I type something in, that's going to delete all of the other data that was previously inserted without that spread. So the spread's pretty,
yeah,
pretty,
that makes
pretty
sense.
important. So the spread's pretty important because you want the previous data that was already in there. And then everything after that spread is replacing it. So it's going to, in this case, let me save that. In this case, if I type THIS, let me refresh. Did I mess this up again? Okay. All right, so we've got this, and you notice that it's not deleting anything. So I guess I lost my point.
No, you're good. I get it. It just
Yeah.
saves the model as well as the accepted. So it just
Yeah.
seemed like it was a circumstantial thing here that it didn't really click for me why it was needed, but I guess building a more extreme application, it makes sense. Yeah.
So the other thing is whenever we run one of these events, it replaces the entire object. The object doesn't get modified. It gets replaced completely whenever you do a set form. So you want to copy all of the old data before you delete it by overwriting it. And whenever you type in a letter, like this, it is starting off with this here, and it's replacing it with all of this data. And since this right here, the Model S wasn't replaced and the accepted wasn't replaced, it just replaces the full name with whatever was in the text field. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. Thank you.
I'm going to get rid of that. So now here's kind of a weird little problem that we're going to run into. So I'm probably just going to start calling this name. So we'll say and there's a reason for me doing this, is it's going to be a lot easier when we start dealing with some of the yup things. So right now it's just name and value, right? So the default value of that checkbox is going to be off. The default value of accepted is false. And so we're only wanting to toggle this based off of what is in the checkbox. So I don't think I really need to display anything in that checkbox that's based off of state, because the web form is already going to be toggling the state on and off. So this is where it's going to get a little bit weird. So we need to be able to detect when this input type is checkbox. So let's see here. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to do e.target type. So notice how we have our e.target is this element here. So this input element is e.target. .type is this field right here. So if this field exactly equals checkbox, what we want to do is we want to save the value that is stored in e.target.checked. Otherwise, if it isn't a checkbox, if e.target.type is not checkbox, then we're going to return e.target.value. So if I go in here and I inspect this input here, and I check that box, it's going to change a checked value inside of here. It's going to add a value of checked to this. So now, by me adding in this line here, we should be able to store the state of this form change. So let's go ahead and check it and make sure I'm doing this right. So I'm going to put form back in. All right, so let me refresh the page. So we've got a Model S. We've got a full name. I didn't put anything in, and accepted as false. If I click on this, no, I didn't put an on change in. Sorry, one moment. I need to copy this over first. So now we've got an on change on this input. So we're using the exact same form change function to do something that is really weird on these checkboxes, because they don't really have a value field or a value. They have it checked. So if I check this, this should go through and change accepted to true and accepted to false. I think if we were to go and do checked equals I think this will also work. Let me see. Nope, it didn't like it. It was complaining. So yeah, this is the correct way of doing it. I'm having to do it from slight memory. And I'm old and it's late. All right, so now if we do, and I solemnly swear I'm up to no good. Notice how we've got Brian Haig accepted as true. We've got this model S, for whatever reason, it's not exactly correct. But inside of the submit handler, let's say that we wanted to add in, you know, our model, for example. So we'll just have a model as an empty string. It doesn't really like it when you change your state values. It'll complain. So anything that you want to submit, you probably want to have in your initial form values. But the only time that I really want to submit that data is during the submission process, that we're ordering a Model S, right? So what I might do is I might set form. It's going to be an object. We're going to spread form again. Tell me if you've seen this line before. And we're going to do model, and then just model, which is this this variable right here. So we have a key of model, which is just what we're going to call it, and adding in whatever model they ordered. So if I, okay, I have blown that up. Let's see, where did I break this? Expected a comma. No, I didn't save you. Okay, it's still happy. I just wanted to make sure. So, oh yeah, I never put in that closing bracket. Weird. All right. So Brian Haig, show me the money. Funk. Oh no, we already went back over to my order. Yeah, that's horrible. That's not what we want. So let's refresh. Let's see if we can store this in state and get it where it shows up as an order. So probably what we're going to need is we're going to need something like orders, and we'll do set orders, use state, and we're going to want it as an array because maybe you added more than one order. Maybe you ordered, you know, you're rich and you bought 2 Model S's, right? Whatever. So we're probably going to want to send both of these down as props. So what we can do is and so we're going to pass down props instead of this route. And the reason why I put it back on the app is because this state needs to be available to all of these routes. You know, well, maybe not the home path, but my order definitely. So you're probably going to want to display this somehow, like, you know, orders.map. I gotta wrap this, break out of JSX mode. And we'll just call this order. Something like that. I guess we probably want an index because we'll end up having a key on here as well. So, and I just made another mistake. I don't want that. I want JSX again. Now, we'll do a section and then just, I don't know, we'll do key. Oh, let's see here. We'll just call this my orders, $, curly bracket, index. That seems pretty specific and unique. See what else. We probably want to display some information in here. So we've got the model that we ordered, full name and accepted. So let's do a couple of p tags. We'll do model, and it'll be order dot model. Do we call it? Yeah, order dot model. We'll do another p tag, and we'll do. I guess we don't have to loop over name. Well, I guess we probably could. We'll just show who all the orders, I guess. We'll do order.name. And then we'll do a conditional render on this one. So we'll do, I guess, order.accepted is going to be true. If it's true, then we're going to render out a p tag. Let me wrap this. We're going to render out a p tag and call it, let's see. I probably broke something in here because I see red lines here. It didn't like that.
It's the way that p tags close. The p's on the wrong side of the forward slash.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. And it exploded. All right, so what else we got? Comma expected. Oh, geez. One of these years, I'm going to get this right. All right. So if we go to my order, it's not showing anything at all. There are no orders in here. We've passed down into our model route, our order form route. And so we've got orders. So we've got props.orders and props.set orders that we can pull out of here. I think let me move this back over here so it's nice and big. So instead of me doing something like, you know, const curly brackets, orders, set orders equals props, something like that, what we can do is we can even shortcut this even further and just put it right into where props would be. And now they're just parameters that were passed in. So now we can access order and set orders like normal human beings. So we have set our form, and now we can set our order. And this is an array. If you notice back on our app.js, our set orders is set to an array because we're going to have an array of orders. And so we want to also spread in our orders and also add in our form. But we're not wanting to spread form. We just want to put the whole object there. Now I know I've confused some people. Time to ask questions. Wow, no questions. Does that make sense at all? No questions on why I didn't spread? Okay, cool. I'm just gonna save that. So now when I, we'll go to like the model Y. I am up to no good. Show me the money. We got model name, they're up to no good. That didn't quite work the way that I wanted it to. Let me see why it didn't. One moment. In a time for me to debug something. That didn't work the way I wanted it to. So we're going to say, nope, not form border.
Don't you need the use effect in the?
Yep. Good call out. No, not caps. So we're just going to console log orders. All right, and then the other thing I'm going to do is an order form is we're going to console log form. Yeah, so this is going to console log out whatever is in our form at the time that we're setting the order. At least I think. All right, so let's go back over here. All right, so this is showing, yeah, it's showing, it's full name. That's why. And then it didn't save in the model for whatever reason. Probably my guess is that because we're trying to set the form here, the model never showed up. And we messed up because it's first name, and I still had it in as name when we rendered it here. So it should be first name. Or sorry, full name. Now it's got Brian Haig. The Model S, so this set form hadn't happened yet. So we can't do it that way. But since we only need to set it once, we can use a use effect, and that'll happen on its at the end of its first render. So there are ways of us forcing it to talk. And we're just going to have an empty dependency array, so it only runs at the end of the first render. And we'll just do set form, pass in an object, spread form. We're going to do model. Model is equal to the variable model. All right, so let's refresh. This time I'm going to get a model S. And we will say solemnly swear I'm up to no good. Show me the money. Now we've got a model S, Brian Haig, and they're up to no good. So now if I go back over to say like model Y and I do say Adam Smith, but let's just have it where you're not up to no good. I do show me the money. Now, Adam Smith, you now have a model Y. You were on the hook for a lot of money.
Oh man.
But you're also not up to you're also not up to no good. So, or yeah, you're up to good, I guess. So the idea is that you should be able to come back to this and it still persists that data. Now, if I just come up here and hit enter up here, it's going to reload the page and you just lost everything. Now we're getting into data persistence and APIs and stuff like that. That's just something that we're just not going to cover until Unit 4. And well, next unit you will. There'll be a couple of fake APIs that you're going to be submitting to and being able to store information and retrieve it at some point. But for right now, no. Not really worth really digging into it too far. But since we're going to cover it for like a week straight next unit. Any questions on basic forms before we get into yup validation and go into I guess Cypress is after that. Yes, no questions? Speak
No
now.
question.
Awesome, cool. All right, so now we're going to need to stop the server and restart the server because we're going to add in adding yup. So going back to the code and checking out package JSON, we don't have yup in here. So let's do npm install yup. Should be version, I don't know, 30.32. There you go. They haven't changed it. And now we can start dealing with our yup schema. And I'm going to do this all in one file instead of trying to break it out. So it's going to start becoming really long. Not that this isn't short. So if I lose you guys, just stop me and ask where I'm at, or if I can scroll up or down, or ask a lot of questions on this, because you know, this is where it gets a little interesting. It's still a little bit tricky, but it's not too bad. So what we're going to need to do is import our yup. I believe it's maybe it was. Let me look up my notes. I always forget this on yup. So I think it was star as yup. Yeah, it's not destructure, it's star as. Okay, so what this is doing is it's taking all of the items that are available from Yup and putting them into something called Yup. So, go back to my notes, sorry. This is also where I always have to have notes. I have to have notes for, typically for Cypress and Yup, and it's only because there's a lot to it. So if I'm going to start a Yup schema, I'm going to start it with exactly what we have. So if you'll notice, we have a string, and a Boolean, right? So I'm going to want to save this as a variable, and I'm going to want to have whatever Yup object returns. I'm also going to chain on the shape. And the shape is going to be this shape right here. But it's not going to understand the name as being a string just by doing this. We have to make it a Yup string. And you could say, you know, like, you know, minimum number of characters. I think it's 4, and then you can put your error code. Your name is too short. And same thing with this. This one's going to have to be a Yup string. And, well, sorry, this one isn't going to have any validation. Sorry, I was thinking this was full name. Ignore me. This one is not going to have a minimum at all. It's just going to be there. So we want it to be a string value, and that's it. We don't care about the minimum or any of that kind of stuff. Full name, we want this to be a string value, minimum of 4, because honestly, if you don't have 4 letters in your name, then I can't think of any cases where your full name is less than 4 characters.
What if it's a name like Max?
Max is still needs a last name.
Not true.
Even McLovin is more than 4. Oh, we got that joke. That's horrible. All right, so accepted. So this is the one that stumps a lot of people. And one, it's a Boolean value. So you want to do a yup.bool. Now, we're not going to make it so that it's, you know, required or any of this other stuff. We're going to do a one of. And one of is going to take an array as its first parameter, and we want this to be true. It can either be true or false. So we're going to want one of them to be required. If it's something else, we can do, here, capitalize this one. This is a error message. You must be up to no good to order from us, right? So these are the error messages that are going to show up in our form. And that's a form schema. Not anything particularly difficult. Most of the two things that you'll usually see are string values and Boolean. There's other ones like email and I guess password and all kinds of other things that you can do. You can also add more complexity with like regex statements and all kinds of stuff that are just really nasty. But luckily, that's not my department at work, so I don't have to do this very often. Somebody else who deals with forms deals with that. They get paid more than I do as well. So I guess the next thing that I'm going to want is I'm going to want a state to hold my errors and a state to determine whether or not I can submit, so it disabled. Trying to think what else I would want. I think that's probably it. So let's do a slice of state called errors and set errors. And again, this is going to be equal to the exact shape of my initial form values. This thing's coming in handy across the board. So there's our model full name and accepted errors. Okay, cool. So now we have an error. The next thing that we're probably going to want to do is make it so the button is disabled. And we're going to want our use state to be true by default. And I'm going to start with this disabled button down on our button. So all we need to do is just do disabled equals disabled. So if I save this and I go to, say, model Y, of course, that doesn't do what I want. Did I save that? Let me refresh. Oh, we don't have it running. That's why. We installed Yup, and we've been doing all this work without even checking to make sure it crashed. Let's see how much is broken. Oh, nothing broke. I'm amazed. All right, so now we have this button. It's disabled. We can't click on it. And if you just inspect the button, you'll see that it just says the word disabled here. So if we get rid of that, oh, we can still click on the button. So it's not exactly like high security or anything. We could always just, add it back in or something. But yeah. But we also want to make it so when this is checked and this is more than 4 and there is a model, then we're going to have something there. And then we also need to deal with the edge case of not having the correct model. Yeah, that's something else. So, we've got a button that will work when it's not disabled. So when it's enabled, it won't have disabled in there. Does that make sense? Anyone confused on that? Nobody. Cool. All right. So let me go back to my notes on making a validator. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new function, and I'm just going to call it validate change. You can call it whatever you want. We're going to need to take in our event. So what we're wanting to do is to determine I guess I could probably just pass a name and value in here. Oops. We're going to need to determine which part of the form schema up here we need to check. So in this case, like full name, we're going to need to check that. So in order to check that, we're going to need to do a reach, not react. Yup.reach. Now, yup.reach takes in a schema object, a yup schema object, which is form schema. And it also takes in one of these words. So the full name, model, accepted, right? And so what we can do is we just type in name. And when we call this, we're going to need to pass both the name and the value into validate change. Now, this also has other things that you can do. In this case, we're going to run validate. Now, validate is going to want to let's see. We're just going to want to validate the value in here. I don't think I need to have that on a second line. So we're passing in whatever we want to validate to determine, like say we typed in one letter in full name, the name is too short, right? So it needs to know the name here, which is full name, and the value, if I type the letter A, is the letter A, does this match this yup string min for your name is too short is what it's supposed to error out if it's less than 4. So this is where they're using a .then and a .catch. So the .then means that it is more than 4 and it is a string. So in this case, it's going to run whatever's in this box. If it does not validate, in other words, if it's less than 4 or it's not a string value, then it's going to run the catch block. So in either case, we want to run set errors. And set errors is an object. I'm just going to copy this and paste. So let's do the catch first. So when there is an error, we need to spread the errors. Oh, too many errors. And we also get passed in an actual error object. So we're going to need to then modify the full name. So we're going to need our name. And we're going to need a value to go in here. But we're not going to want the value from validate change because that's just the letter A. We want to have the error message that comes off of here, right? So error is an object. Inside of error, you have something called errors. And if you try to just console log out this error, you will not see it. If you do error.errors, you will notice that the first element in the array is the latest error. And it'll just have like a bunch of different errors inside of that. So this set error is going to overwrite this full name, and it says your name is too short. So what happens when we go past 4 characters? It's going to get into this then. So what we want to do is we want to reset full name from your name is too short back to this empty string. So what we can do is spread in their errors. If I can spell today, geez. And we're going to do a name and an empty string. So this is going to be our first name here, or full name. I swear I'm going to keep calling it first name. And it's going to be replacing whatever your name is too short with an empty string. And if you backspace and make it 3, it's going to go back into your name is too short. So that's how you do a basic form validation routine. So now we've got to put this into our form change. And we could just toss this right underneath these name and value because we want to pass in name and value. So we're going to do validate change, and we're going to pass in name and value. So if I save this, refresh just to make sure. All right, so, and when I check this, this should, oh, it didn't do anything. So we're valid, but we've never done anything here with the show me the money. So the disabled has never been set in anywhere. So how would you determine whether or not something is disabled or not? And the hint is up here. We've got a use effect that we're going to need to do. How would you do that? So anytime the form is changed, let's see, where is form? Anytime our form changes, we're going to want to rerun the use effect. So we've got a use effect here. This is not the one that we want. I'm going to copy it anyway because I'm being lazy. And I'm going to put form in here. We don't want to set form. What we want to do is we want to see if the form schema is valid or not. And by doing that, we can just go to our form schema. And form schema is very, very special. It has all kinds of neat methods on it, like is valid, for an example. And all we need to do is pass in our form. Is it valid? Yeah, it's valid. Then, let's put that down on another line. If it is valid, all we need to do is, come on now, set disabled to not valid. Let's see if this works. Refresh. Show me the money. If I do it again, it goes away. If this is no longer long enough, I can click this all day long and it doesn't do anything. The problem right now is that we just have no error messages at all. So what you can do let's say, let me do some styles right quick so we stop having this on one line. We're going to do order form. And let's see here. Order form. That button just crazy big. We'll do. Oh, see. I want to block. Always forget what I usually put this as. Yeah, I'll just make it flex, whatever. There. It's still way too wide. That's horrible. Auto. All right, I'm just not going to mess with the button. I can't even get the button working. I must be tired. We're just going to leave the button alone. It will be a gigantic line item button. All right. So let's see if we can render an error inside of here. So let's do it on the name line. So let me change this to a p tag. This will help make it sense. And make life a little bit easier. All right, let's see. All right, so now they're up to two different lines. Makes my life a little bit easier. And what we can do is we can put in a little conditional rendering here, or just display the error because it's just an empty string. So we can do errors.model errors.fullname. So errors.fullname right there. And you could probably put it in like a span. Last name of error. Let me just copy this and move this to here. And we don't want full name, we want accepted right there. So let's put in a little color into that. So we'll do Okay, cool. There we go. Now we've got our, your name is too short, you must be up to no good to order from us. So checkbox and then show me the money. Okay, tons of questions on yep validation always. You guys have no questions? Come on. I don't believe it. I even have questions still about yep. Oh, I see people coming off mute. Come on, say something.
Can you scroll up, please? Can I see the code?
Oh yeah, sure. Let me also, I can make this a little bigger. What part would you like to see?
Here's fine.
Okay. Take notes, ample notes. This will also be posted at some point tonight, and it is an HD recording, so you can actually read off the screen, but I don't ever post code from a sprint review. Anyone else need me to scroll or anything else? Or you're good? Let me get rid of this console log here. Let's get rid of this console log and this console log. We don't need those. Get rid of the orders. That was just used for me troubleshooting some stuff. All right. And refresh. Let's make sure we didn't break anything. So let's order a Model S. Plaid modes. Well, solemnly swear. Show me the money. So Model S, name is Plaid mode. They're up to no good. Model 3. Performance, please. They're up to no good. So now you can see 2 people have ordered. So this might be orders instead of my order, but I'm not going to change it. A little late now. So, all right. So Cyprus testing, everybody's favorite subject to hate. Anybody have questions before I get into it?
Can we cover the disabled button real quick?
Yeah, sure. So there's 3 parts to the disabled button. You need a slice of state to hold it. We want it to always be disabled by default.
Right.
You need to have something to hold the state of whether or not you have something accepted or not, because this needs to be validated. And you need to be able to validate whether or not the form passes a sniff check.
Okay, I follow.
So that's why we put it into the use effect. If we don't have this in the use effect, like if you try to do this in the validator, I've seen a lot of people do that and they don't understand why it's failing on certain things. And I think a couple of my videos, I even put it into the validator. What ends up happening is that the form schema is valid is setting disabled, but it's not setting it on the next render. This has to happen and cause a new re-render because the way that React deals with the side effect. So if we just tried to set disabled in like this then or catch, it's never going to set, and you're going to run into problems in Cypress testing on whether or not this button is disabled or not. Kind of like a race condition or something like that. It's just some weird behavior if you don't put it into a use effect.
Yeah, that was my doubt.
Yeah. So the reason why I don't need a dot catch here is because is valid returns a true or false value. And we want to reverse this because disabled only happens when it's not valid. So if valid is true, then we want it to be not true as disabled. So that's false. And if the validation is false, we want it to be, reverse that. See, I'm already screwing it up. So if it is not valid, then it's going to be returning a false, and we want disabled to be set to true. If it is valid, then we want disabled to be set to false, which is not true. So not valid. Make sense?
Yeah.
So the other thing that you might do is call this enabled to make it a little easier. So if it is a valid, it's enabled. But disabled needs to be the opposite of an enabled, right? So if it enabled is true, then that's disabled. If enabled is false, or no, yeah, so if enabled is true, yeah, see, I'm already screwing it up. I gotta break out a logic table for that one. But yeah, so this is what works, and works even with Cypress weirdness and everything else. So any other questions, and we can get into Cypress testing a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and run my normal thing, which is we're just going to try to install it, see if something else has exploded. Yes. Okay, so it's already working. That's great. We'll do npx open, npx Cypress open. And this is going to open up Cypress. In another window, eventually it will open it. The other thing that it's going to do is you should notice that it will have a Cypress folder eventually. My internet's not the world's fastest. Yeah, all right, so here's the Cypress directory. So this Cypress directory shows up after you open Cypress. So whenever you type this npx Cypress open, or however you open your Cypress, it turns all of these lovely things on. Let me figure out which window that is on.
Hey, Brian, I have a question.
Yeah.
Would it be possible if we download all like dependencies first, like Cypress and
Well, Cypress should already be done. If you followed the npx Cypress install, or if you installed it globally, it should already be downloaded. This still has to, it says that it installs it, but this is installing it in, like, I don't know, package.json somewhere. I don't know exactly where it's putting it, but I think that it puts a few little dependencies inside of your node modules folder or something. I don't remember exactly how it does it. You know, this right here is just, you know, kind of, you know, you kind of have to let it open, which this finally did open. My machine's not always the fastest.
Right, but I mean, I'm like, would we make the code first, like what we did earlier with this app JSX, the order form,
It's
or
like,
do we do it all at once? Can we do all at once?
you can do it all at the same time. Kind of the reason why I'm not doing that tonight is because I'm separating it out into the 4 days of topics in the same order that we learned them. But typically what I might do is I might write my tests first if I'm writing a program.
Because the Cypress is just like the building the test for the.
Yeah. So, mostly because if I write my test first, it's going to take me longer to develop the application, which means I technically get paid more money. That's not the real reason why you do it, though. The biggest problem is if you write your tests well and you cover all of the cases of all your error messaging, all of your if-else statements, all of your conditional renderings, all of everything, right? If you cover all of those and you cover them well, if somebody comes back in a year and starts messing with your stuff and it breaks functionality, then they won't be able to submit their code in a large code base because it doesn't pass the tests. And they might shoot you an email and say, hey, your tests are broken, or something like that. And you could just look at them and say, no, tests are working fine. You broke it here. This is a functionality that was already QA'd and everything else. So if you get really good at testing, and testing is something that you have to learn on your own, you don't want to be that guy who's, making $85,000 a year and is learning testing. It's something that has taken me 3 years to get to the point where I'm at. And I still don't consider myself even close to acceptable in my mind for the level of testing that I should be doing. And that's not saying that I'm not great at testing or bad at testing. It's just that's not what I wanted to do.
Is Cypress a framework or
It's a
library?
testing library.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also like a command line application and all kinds of stuff. So typically I usually put this in like the integration folder, and I'll just do like a new file in here, and I don't know. And I usually do order.spec.js. Some places want order-test.js or something like that, but order.spec is fine in this specific case. The actual file name, I don't think that it requires. Oh, dang it, I did it again.
Also, why do
I'm
we
just
need
gonna have to
.spec? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, this is. I just had to move that off the screen because every time I click on it, it opens up the test, and that's not what I'm wanting it to do. So .spec is just, so like if we open up like the getting started, their format is to do .spec.js. It's just for them to know that it's a test. So these are the specifications of, your integration test. That's all it means. So if you're writing something to specifications, you write your specifications first, and then you write your application around the specifications. So you know that it requires a certain style. You know it requires a certain type of data to be put into it. So like if you need to pass props, or if there's a certain workflow that needs to be followed, you would be writing tests for that. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to run a sanity check. So you can have its and describes. So a describe is typically a test suite, and it is a test. So two things that you're going to notice is that on its and describes is they take two parameters. The first one is a string. The second one is a function or a callback. So this is just going to be whatever the name of the test is. In this case, it's called Sanity Check. And a lot of the times what you can do is you can do something like expect, I don't know, 7 plus 5. No, I guess we'll do Fibonacci numbers. 8 plus 5 to equal, what is it, 13? There we go. So if I save this, let me drag this window back over. And now I have this this order spec. I'm just going to get rid of these folders. That one. Nice to have the extra source code there, but so now I have this order spec.js. If I click on this, it's going to open up the test window, and it's going to say assert expected 13 to equal 13. So it passed our test. Our sanity check is now passing. I'm going to move that off screen because it's driving me up a wall. So by doing that, you're making sure that the Cypress testing is working and that it's connecting into this and doing something. It's kind of like, you know, setting your background color to red in CSS when you're first trying to make sure that it's connected, right? So the other thing that you're going to want to do is typically you're going to want to do a test suite. So we'll call this order a Tesla. And again, it takes a string and a callback. So what you might do is you might say, hey, I want this thing to connect to the website for every time that it does an if statement inside of this describe. So what you might do is a before each. So now the before each is going to take yet another callback. And we would do like a Cypress visit. Oh, I swear. So now what we need to do is we need to visit our home page. So we copy this and put that in like that. It's going to visit the home page before each one of these if statements. We'll say describe Tesla website. Sounds better. It can visit the home page so what you can do is you can check to see if something contains like a phrase, for example, like, you know, home, or please select your vehicle above, right? Now let me change that to a lowercase s, just because I want to. There. So let's see if it contains please select your vehicle above in the test. All right, so now this is going to the home page. It's seeing if the home page contains the phrase, please select your vehicle above. That's the only place that we have that written, so it's probably a pretty decent test to go to. Where'd that go? So if I run this test again, you're going to see that it opens up our website. So the server has to be running. So this has to be running. And it's going to visit whatever website you put in there. So like, if you were to put in, let me see. So like google.com or whatever, you could see what comes back from google.com and test google.com's website. So you have to have a working server for you to do a Cypress visit. Does that make sense? Let me see where that one went. There it is. And you can see that it can visit the home page. And if I click into this test, you can see that it visits the web page. The test body contains, please select your vehicle above. And it does. It shows when we hover over it, it shows that it's in the page. So that's not particularly interesting to me. I'd probably want to do something more than just visit the home page. I want to see if I can order. And order a Model Y. So now this is where you're going to need to start using some things in this is where you're going to need to start using some different ways of selecting things, because sure, you could select you know, an anchor tag where the name is equal to Model S, right? And then click on it. But it's going to be a lot easier for you to do a data style. Right? So we're going to say each one of these buttons is likely to have, or not a data style. This is going to be a data test ID. Did I mention that I've been up for a few hours? These are all going to be. I'm going to do a multi-cursor on this. Data, not data style. Geez, test ID. And we're going to change these to say home, Model S, 3, come on, X, Y, and let's do my order like that. So instead of having to get really crazy specific on, you know, an anchor tag that happens to contain this, well, what if there's 5 or 6 links on the page? Well, if you have a data test ID, you can specify that data test ID by doing, say, a site get, and then you can put in square brackets, data test ID equals, I'm sorry, I need to do, I'm going to match everything inside of here. So I want to use, I can say use backticks. Data test ID equals quotes, and this was model dash Y. And I want to click on it. Let me save that. And I'm going to run that test again. So we're underneath the Tesla website here and can order a Model Y. So it visited, it got, but it did not click. Did not invoke it, didn't invoke it. Gotta invoke the click. Let's run this again. Yeah, so it goes to the Model Y page. So if you notice, each one of these steps, you can see that it visited, it got the Model Y button up here, it clicked it, and it went to a new URL. There we go. And it went to here. So you can see what's happening is that it went to the website, it got the Model Y test ID from here. It clicked on this link, which went to, well, to this link, which went to this endpoint, the Model Y endpoint. Does that make sense? Anybody else lost? Did I lose everybody? We got 4 people left in here, so no need to be embarrassed or anything.
No, you kind of break it down more simple than when we learned it earlier. So I like the way you did it.
It's also that you've already practiced with it and watched somebody else do it. Whenever you run into a new subject, hearing it a second time can't ever hurt. So I have the advantage of somebody's already giving you some of the basics of it. So if I go into this order spec here, and we're now clicking, well, we probably want to make sure that this website contains the phrase order Model Y, right? So we can kind of do the same CY contains. Yeah, I'm just going to do backticks since that's been working. So if it does contain order Model Y, then we are in the right place. The next thing that I'm probably going to want to do is because we're going to be wanting to test the state of our submit button, we want to store that submit button. So this needs to be set to a function that returns us a Cypress get. Now, here's a problem again. So like we could just look up the button, right? And it would work, but it's not specific enough. What if there's more than one button on the page, right? So what we need to do instead is we need to go back into our order form and add in a submit button data test ID. So I can just copy that and paste it into some square brackets. And now it should be able to select our submit button. You guys want me to run Cypress again so you can see that in action? And we can step through it.
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's save this, save our order form, go back into Cypress. And we're going to do the order spec. Okay, so if I go back here to order a Model Y, so first thing it does is it visits the page because it's in a new it statement. It does the before each. It gets the model Y, clicks on it, goes to a new page. Come on. Why are you not loading? Okay. It contains order model Y, and we've only stored that click or the submit button. We haven't actually gone through and done anything with it. So what we can do is we can go into here and we could do something like submit button. And because submit button is set to this, we're now executing it. We're now invoking it because submit button is a function. This just happens to be a variable, right? And what we can do is we could do a should. Should be disabled. Now, if I run this again, now we should see something in here where we've gotten the test ID submit button and it's currently disabled. So let's go back here, stop it. So what are the conditions that we need to have to make it so it's enabled? So we'll make that our test here. So first thing is we need to go into our order form and we need to add some more of these data test IDs. So we're going to start with these two. And we're going to call this one, say, full name and accepted. So what I can do is in here, let me save this. I can do a scigit. I can pass in this here and wrap it in square brackets so that it knows to look at this key value pair. So now what I can do is I can type into it. So Lightning McQueen, buying a Model Y. Another thing that I can do is I can do a sci.get. We can check the accepted. So we'll do, and we can do a click. Come on. Like that. So let's go ahead and save that. So we're going to watch it go through all of these. It's going to check to make sure this is disabled. It's going to type in Lightning McQueen and it's going to click on the accepted. So let's run that again. So notice it typed in Lightning McQueen and solemnly swear I'm up to no good. We're good. And this button is now enabled. minimize that. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to check to see if the submit button is enabled. So now the thing is they don't really have an enabled thing because it's going to be not disabled. And so we're going to do not be disabled. So notice up here it's be disabled. This should not be disabled. So if we save this, go back over to Cypress and click on it again, should still pass because now it's no longer disabled. So you can see it goes through, visits that page, gets the Model Y button, clicks on it, goes to the new page, has order Model Y. It gets the submit button. Submit button is disabled. It gets the full name text box, types in Lightning McQueen, clicks on accepted, and gets the submit button and says the submit button should not be disabled. In this case, it's, well, it's not. It's totally clickable. So now what we can do is we can click on the submit button. Which is going to redirect us to the final page. So we now have a My Order with Model Y, name is Lightning McQueen. So we're going to see if this this new page contains Lightning McQueen, and that'll be a pretty good end-to-end test, and you know, very much the way that you would test one possible route from end to end using Cypress. And you would still have to do it for Model S, you know, Model X, Model Y, Model 3, the whole thing. So we'll do a sci.contains, and we'll say name Lightning McQueen because we're expecting it to be Lightning McQueen. But we also want to make sure that it's on that page, so it's name. So now if I go and open up Cypress and I run this again, it should pass. And that's more than good enough to pass your sprint. It's one test here. And you wanted to put a couple more in. This is pretty simple. What you can do is you can just copy this, paste. We're going to do a Model X. We're going to do Model X on this one. Contains order Model X. We're going to save it and run tests. This one. Now this is going to run 2 tests. In order a Model X, it ordered a Model X. Can order a Model Y, it ordered a Model Y. Any questions, comments, concerns?
It looks pretty straightforward.
So this is just, you know, once when you start getting into where you can use these data test IDs, it makes a lot of the, you know, the CSS stuff that you're having to figure out. It makes it just dead simple. And technically you could style to this as well. So like, you know, let's say you've got data test ID full name. You could actually put this into your CSS and, you know, do something like purple. Right. So now if we type it here, it's purple. But it's just a CSS selector. Not that I would suggest using a data test ID. You probably use a data style to do that. So hopefully that makes sense. Only 2 people left. I've run everybody off.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right.
It is getting late.
It's late. A lot of people had to drop because of the time. And I think that this is right at 2 hours, 45 minutes. So I must have done a good job. I'm gonna stop recording.
All right.